Well, I'm coming on Thursday, another episode of the ToddCast. Not going to say that this is the most enthusiastic episode um, in light of the tragic events in Utah, the assassination, the killing of Charlie Kirk, a conservative political activist. Um, it's horrific. It's sickening. What's really awful about this is that it also happened on a college campus where we should be celebrating speech. That's what he was doing, expressing political speech, making a political argument, exactly what this country was founded on, what every college campus in America embraces and should embrace. Um, and we get this violence. There's it's going to be a lot of finger pointing. There already is. And I think I hope everybody realizes that when they point the finger, they're also pointing at themselves. Because everybody in the political arena, everybody needs to do soul searching. We're in a tinderbox of our own making. Political violence is happening far too often. It was just June in Minnesota when you had somebody stalk state legislators, killing them in Minnesota. There's no political movement or party that is immune from what we've seen. And so anybody that attempts to try to say, yeah, but on this, I'm not listening to you. And you shouldn't listen to him either. This is not a yeah, but moment. This is tragedy, but there's a lot of this but. We've all let rhetoric escalate too much. It's been a decade of this. Okay, it's been a decade. Many of us in the land of reporting have experienced threats and have been fearful for ourselves. We're alive. Charlie's not. He was a father. He had kids. As somebody whose father died at 16, I can't imagine not having a father at 5. At least I had my dad for 16 years. His kids won't. All over a political dispute, a disagreement. The whole point, you've heard me say it before, but I'm going to say it till I'm blue in my face. The whole reason human beings invented this idea of politics, negotiation, was so that we could resolve disputes without violence. That's why I love politics. When you resolve disputes with violence, you're no longer practicing politics. You're practicing nihilism. Maybe you're broken. We got to ask ourselves, what are we doing here? And we're all going to want some entity or somebody to blame because we hate moments like this. I'm looking for somebody to blame. I'm not going to lie to you. I think the way we amplify rhetoric in this country, the incentive structure in the information ecosystem, which gives extreme rhetoric and a greater opportunity to circulate rather than nuanced conversation or respectful political debate. The algorithms don't seem to favor those things. Far too easy for broken people to get a weapon. The point is, there's a lot of reasons we got here. There's no one reason over another There's a ton of contributing factors. We desperately need some political leadership in this country right now that wants to unify. Nobody says we have to agree on everything, but we do need to agree that our Constitution gives us these rights to speech. We have a right to disagree. We should stop dehumanizing. This is a huge problem with political cranks on the left and right who want to dehumanize their political opponents. Because once you dehumanize a political opponent, then you stop seeing them as three-dimensional people, as fathers, as husbands, as wives, as mothers, and you just see them as enemy combatants or two-dimensional figures. So I'm going to be honest. I'm very fearful of of whether we have the responsible leaders to meet the moment that we're in right now. History is, look, the history of this country has a lot of political violence. It doesn't justify political violence happening, though. Just because it has happened in the past doesn't mean we have to repeat it. I've often had heard some historians, try to say, hey, what's happening now, it's not as bad as the 1850s. It's not as bad as the 1950s or 1960s. Well, this is where the era we're living in now, and it feels bad. So I don't give a damn whether it was worse before or not. This seems pretty bad. That you can't go on a college campus and express your opinion without being shot and killed. That's not supposed to happen in America. So it's far too often we've had these moments where something like this happens and we realize, oh, wait a minute, we've got to take a step back. After Gabby Giffords in 2011, there was let's take a step back. And we had a couple of State of the Unions in a row where the two parties sat with each other and didn't sort of split each other up. We've lost this ability to see each other as Americans before, regardless of whether somebody's wearing a blue or red jersey. We should be in a competition for ideas. We should be persuading. We shouldn't celebrate pugilism. There's a lot of actions that have taken place. And I'm not going to sit here and single out an action on the left or an action on the right, because I'm not going to let this algorithm or let some Yahoo try to weaponize something I said to try to disparage a whole group of people, whether journalists, whether whoever. The point is, everybody in elective office, everybody in the political arena, every one of us who've covered politics, we know we've been walking on eggshells. We know that the way politics has been conducted over the last 10 years is not going to lead us to a better place. And here we are. There's an expression that sometimes before things get better, things have to get worse. Sometimes things just keep getting worse. If we want things to get better, we have to actually want things to get better. We have to realize that the whole point of this experiment that is America, we're different than every other country. We're an idea, despite what some really uninformed senator said the other day that disputed the idea that America was an idea, wanted to believe it was some ethnic or like-minded thing. It's an idea based on those principles and those Bill of Rights, based on the principle of freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly. We don't want the government to get in the way of that, and we certainly don't want individuals to take it away from people like that was taken away from Charlie. So it's I think we've underreacted to all the political violence that's been taking place over the last few years. The assassinations in Minnesota, the assassination attempts against President Trump. I don't know if there's a lot of credibility with elected members here in Washington, left or right, to get together and try to do something, but I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see the president address the nation and say this, we've got to stop. We've got to sort of sit back. I could be cynical and say, oh, maybe not this president. Doesn't matter who's president. He should want us unified. He does. Maybe he wants us unified in his own terms, but he needs to address the country. He's everybody's president. Everybody needs to make an attempt to turn the temperature down. I think the people we expect to rise to the occasion will, but this moment calls for people to rise to the occasion that you don't expect. So I'm going to hold out some hope because the country needs it. Again, unity doesn't mean agreeing. Unity means you're agreeing to the process. We've agreed that how elections go, we're going to let them go. Who wins, we're going to accept winning. And the problem is when you don't, right, you start eroding things. And over the last 10 years, we've just eroded these things little by little. I think we've compartmentalized it a little bit. And I can't help but go back to our information ecosystem and how warped it is intentionally become by the algorithms and by these tech companies. Most of us Americans live between the 30-yard lines. And temperamentally, I think most Americans live between the 30-yard lines. There's an extreme fringe that is super online, that gets whipped up, preys on the lonely, preys on the angry, preys on the othered, right? When you otherize somebody, they may start otherizing themselves. So the point is that every action creates a reaction. Every attack creates a rationale to counterattack. And that's what we have to prevent in this moment. So it's going to be a test of our political leadership. It would be easy for me to say here, I don't expect that we have the leaders to meet this moment because look at what happened over the last decade. But hope springs eternal. And you never know when the moment comes where somebody realizes enough is enough. I hope this is the enough is enough moment. I thought the attack, I think we all thought the attack on the Minnesota legislatures would be enough is enough moment. I think we thought seeing first graders massacred would be enough is enough moment. I think we thought a presidential assassination attempt would be enough is enough moment. I thought maybe pipe bombs showing up in people's mailboxes would be enough is enough moment. You get where I'm going here. But there'll be that moment where enough is enough. Let's hope this is a moment that there's enough is enough.